Texas, once the land of promise, now a place where comfort and crisis stand shoulder to shoulder.
Just trying to get better. I got all these crazy wounds on my body still.
You walk past shining towers and tech cafes, then glance sideways. A woman sleeps under the same bridge you drive across every day. On one block, rooftop brunches and scooters. On the next, tents, silence, and children doing homework by flashlight. This isn't just a statistic. It's your street, your city, your shared story. So ask yourself, how did we get here? What does opportunity mean when survival depends on luck? And when even law enforcement resources are stretched thin, what's left for those with nowhere to go? At Roam Kind,
beg people for food and stuff and just sleep your life away.
we invite you to witness this overlooked world, not to judge, but to understand. Because behind every sidewalk, there's a story. And today, one of them is yours to hear. Number 1, Texas, from the promised land to the final stop. You may have arrived here with hope tucked in your coat pocket, believing Texas was where your story would change. It made sense. Sunny skies, affordable homes, and jobs waiting. For a while, it worked. You worked. You built something. And for a moment, you felt safe. But the cost of staying became too steep. Expenses climbed, rent, groceries, utilities, while your wages remained still. You tried to stretch every dollar. You convinced yourself that sleeping in your car was just a short detour. But weeks turned to months. Nights turned to cold concrete. And suddenly, the homelessness crisis wasn't something you passed on the freeway. It was yours.
Risk getting a ticket just trying to eat.
I was scared. Yeah, I was scared. I was in fear for my life.
I never imagined I'd raise my son in a parking lot, Lucia says, voice cracking as she pours cereal into a paper cup in the back seat of her minivan. But I couldn't make it work anymore. And you see it all around you. Under bridges, in abandoned lots, outside fast food chains, poverty no longer hidden behind doors, but sprawled in daylight. Shelters are full, the wait lists grow longer, police presence fades, not from indifference, but from being overwhelmed. And now you ask, if even people who followed the rules end up here, what does that reveal about the system we built? And now you ask yourself, was this really the American dream, or just another illusion? It's not just your story, it's becoming ours. And if even you, who played by the rules, ended up here, what does that say about the system? This isn't just about someone else. It may reflect more of our shared reality than we think. And in that reflection, the next face could be yours. And just when you think it can't get worse, the walls start moving in. Not metaphorically, but in square feet and dollar signs. Number 2, when effort no longer buys shelter. To understand the growing homeless crisis in Texas, we have to start with something more basic, the home itself, and how far out of reach it has become. As of mid-2025, analysts from Motley Fool reported the average home price across Texas reached over $300,000. In urban centers like Austin and Dallas, that number climbed to nearly $417,000. Rent, while no longer peaking as it did last year, still hovers around $1,250 per month, an amount that remains unreachable for many. But behind these market figures are deeply human stories. Older adults forced to sell their lifelong homes to cover rising medical expenses. Working-class families living in single motel rooms after being priced out of apartments. Single parents working day and night, still finding housing just out of reach. Maria, a cafeteria worker in El Paso, told us, "I've worked 12 years, never missed a day. But now I share a motel room with my 2 kids. My last raise barely covered gas, let alone rent." Many advocates argue that this isn't about personal irresponsibility, but rather a deeper imbalance in the system. A system where credit scores replace character and where effort is no longer enough. People are doing everything they're told to do, work hard, stay consistent, but still can't find a stable place to live. So the question becomes, what does it say about a society when full-time work no longer guarantees a roof? Even as high taxes support programs meant to help, many Texans are still falling through the cracks, quietly, invisibly. This isn't just a policy issue, it's a moral one. And unless we act, what's disappearing isn't just housing, it's the foundation of hope itself. Number 3. San Antonio and Austin. The Dream Texas Crash. Have you ever driven through a city and felt like something was missing, even when everything looked just right? The skyline gleams, the streets are swept, but if you pause long enough, you might notice who's no longer there. Families who once built these blocks, neighbors who used to wave from porches, not gone by choice, but priced out, pushed out, left out. That's where the story of San Antonio begins. Once known for its affordability, it now leads Texas in housing cost increases. According to the Point in Time (PIT) count conducted by the South Alamo Regional Alliance for the Homeless, SARA, in January 2024, the city recorded 3,372 individuals experiencing homelessness, with 888 living unsheltered, a 6.8% increase over the previous year. "I worked 40 years in steel," says Ernest, a 67-year-old retiree now living out of his truck. "And now I'm just surviving. That wasn't the plan." In nearby Austin, the numbers whisper a similar reality. The Austin Board of Realtors reports that as of April 2025, median rent has fallen to $1,645 after 19 months of slight declines. But the relief is misleading. That rent is still above pandemic-era highs, and wages haven't kept pace. Developers continue building high-rises, but the affordable housing stock has shrunk. Long-time residents are displaced. Tents appear under highways, and all the while, high taxes and inflation erode whatever security remains for those on the margins. These aren't isolated struggles. They're a shared unraveling. These aren't isolated struggles. They're a shared unraveling. So what does it mean when once affordable cities like San Antonio and Austin now struggle to shelter those who built them? Maybe the promise of prosperity was never fully accessible, and now it's time to re-examine who gets included in that promise. Number 4. 2 cities, 1 broken promise. You live in Texas, a state hailed as a symbol of growth, innovation, and prosperity. But beyond the wide avenues and towering skylines lies a parallel truth. 2 very different worlds exist side by side. They seem disconnected, yet they're often separated by nothing more than a glance. On any given morning in Austin, you might see a tech executive zipping through downtown on a scooter. Just steps away, under the overpass, rows of tents line the concrete, where dozens of people are trying to make it through another cold night. In Houston, fine dining continues beneath candlelight, silverware clinking softly in upscale restaurants. Yet only a few blocks away, another family huddles inside a parked minivan, the only home they've known for months. These aren't isolated scenes anymore. Recent reports show that more than 27,000 Texans are experiencing homelessness. What's more troubling is that the majority of them don't show up in official counts. They're the hidden homeless, staying with friends, rotating through motels, or living out of their cars, invisible, nameless, and unrecorded. Community advocates believe the real number could be even higher. And you, walking past these invisible boundaries every day, start to wonder, what's driving so many people to the edge? How can a state this wealthy allow tens of thousands to live in such quiet desperation? When two worlds are only a few steps apart, how far are you really from the edge? Number 5. People with jobs, still homeless. You finish your shift with sore feet and quiet pride. Behind the counter, under fluorescent lights, you gave the day your best. But now the uniform goes into a plastic bag, and the back seat of your car becomes your bedroom. No address, no lease, just persistence. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Earning close to $18 an hour, you expected stability, a small apartment, maybe a place with a window and a lock. Instead, you're calculating whether you can stretch your paycheck beyond rent. $1,750 for a basic one-room space in Austin. And that's before groceries, fuel, or unexpected medical bills. The math doesn't work, but you do. Every day. And still, applications vanish without replies. Leasing offices ask for documents you don't have. Credit reports untouched since the pandemic. Co-signers you can't provide. Each rejection chips away at more than your housing hopes. It presses into your dignity. This isn't an isolated case. Across Texas in 2025, data shows a 9% increase in full-time workers living without permanent shelter. People with name tags and schedules. People like you. You start asking questions no one prepared you for. What happens when employment no longer protects you from eviction? When effort is met with silence? When policy values credit scores more than character? The homeless crisis has changed. It's no longer just tents under bridges or cardboard signs at intersections. It's inside vehicles parked behind gas stations. It's inside hospitals, schools, and storefronts. Quiet, invisible, surviving. And this is poverty with a paycheck. No drama, no complaints. Just the quiet struggle of people doing everything asked of them, yet still left behind by a system that may no longer fit today's realities. So you wonder, how much longer can you balance full-time labor with no fixed address? And more importantly, how many more will follow you into this silence? Number 6. No Man's Zone. The abandoned areas in the heart of Texas. You might be sipping an espresso under string lights at a new cafe downtown. Just across the street, a woman curls under a thin blanket beneath the overpass, resting her head on a plastic bag, soothing her cough with a free water bottle handed out by a local food bank. Both of you are in Austin, but it feels like two entirely different universes. Austin was once the promise, a city of creativity, warmth, and freedom. But today, it reveals a deep contradiction, a city growing fast, while quietly leaving too many behind. What do you see? Tech festivals lighting up rooftop lounges, electric scooters zipping past towers of glass. But under those same lights, do you see them? Tarps, splintered wood, shopping carts repurposed as walls, lining the underpass of Interstate 35. That's not an exception. That's reality. Before major events, the city clears encampments, officially for safety and cleanliness, though many residents feel it's more about optics than support. In the name of urban order, tents are cleared, people displaced, and sidewalks left spotless, while hearts are left colder. Meanwhile, tens of millions of dollars flow into event promotion, tech incentives, and beautification projects. But affordable housing programs, the ones where hope should live, are buried under unsigned forms and bureaucratic delays. Shelters, overcapacity, wait lists, months long, and those being pushed out. They're the people who served you, the cook behind the counter, the janitor who cleaned your office, the retired teacher who once shaped your child's future. Do you notice that razor-thin line between being seen and being erased? If Austin chooses to showcase curated beauty while sweeping pain out of frame, then is it still a city worth celebrating? Number 7. When work is no longer synonymous with home. What do you think old age looks like in America? A quiet garden, time with family, a solid roof over your head? By the year 2025, a federal report from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development revealed that more than 41,000 adults aged 65 and older are experiencing homelessness across the country. An additional 104,000 individuals between the ages of 55 and 64 are at risk, often just one emergency away from sleeping outdoors. These are more than just data points. They are warning signs that security in old age is no longer something you can count on. You contributed, you showed up, you stayed. And now you have to ask yourself, is anyone still on your side? Older adults are the fastest growing homeless population, says Dr. Margot Kuschel, director of the University of California, San Francisco Benioff Housing and Homelessness Initiative. Dolores, 72, lives in her car with a fold-out table where she tutors kids for a few dollars a day. I still have skills. I still want to help, she says, but no tutoring job pays enough to rent even a single room anymore. And what do they ask for? Not comfort, not handouts, just a warm place to sleep, a meal, a shelter that won't disappear by morning. But according to The Guardian, older adults aren't being forced out directly. They're simply being left behind. There is a serious lack of prevention, stable long-term housing, and accessible healthcare designed for seniors in crisis. This isn't just about housing, it's about memory, dignity, and the kind of society we're choosing to become. When support systems for older adults break down, it's not just the elderly who suffer. Urban sociologists have long warned, when the social contract fails those who built the city, the erosion of resilience affects everyone. What's lost is more than housing. It's trust, continuity, and the idea that contribution will be met with care. Number 8. Shelters are overloaded. Support systems can't keep up. How can a city have fewer homeless, but still leave you nowhere to go? That's the paradox playing out in Austin. Officials point to a 5% drop in homelessness in 2025, 3,541 people, down from the year before. They say shelters are more available, but if you've lived it, you know space doesn't equal support. You've waited in those lines. You've heard the intake worker say, "We're full tonight," without meeting your eyes. Maybe that's the moment you realized. Sleeping in your car keeps your family together, while the system might separate you for your own safety. You aren't alone. The Austin 2025 census still shows 3,238 unhoused. The numbers shifted, but the crisis stayed. And for someone like you, it's not just a lack of beds, it's a lack of fit. You might work, you might hustle shifts at 2 restaurants, pick up gigs on weekends, but the jobs are temporary, unstable, and uninsured. They don't come with benefits, just exhaustion. And when you finally get enough for rent, you hit barriers. Credit checks, security deposits, application fees. The price of a key keeps slipping farther away. They call this a support system. But what does that mean when it's not designed for your reality? Raina, a mother you met at the intake center, says what you've thought but never said aloud. I keep applying for help. But I think the system was built for someone else. You pay your share. High taxes fill budgets for housing programs, but the programs don't reach you. You're caught between statistical gains and lived realities, where numbers show improvement, but experience tells a different story. And the deeper question remains: if fewer people are counted, but more are stuck, who's really being helped? You've done everything right, so why does everything still feel wrong? Maybe the answer isn't in the numbers, but in the stories we've stopped listening to. Number 9. Safety net. Social assistance is being cut. It doesn't collapse all at once. You don't hear sirens. There's no headline. But the unraveling happens quietly. In the denial letter from the rental office, the phone call that cuts your Medicaid coverage, the food stamps that run out 3 days too early. That's how a family falls, not from a cliff, but off a rope that was slowly pulled away. In Texas, that rope is fraying fast. Federal proposals in 2025 threaten to slash over $300 billion from national programs like SNAP and Medicaid, lifelines that keep millions above water. In this state alone, more than 3.2 million residents rely on SNAP, and 76% of them are children. If the cuts are finalized, over 800,000 Texans could lose food assistance, and nearly 500,000 might be left without health care, according to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. Behind those numbers are real faces. Celia Cole, CEO of Feeding Texas, doesn't mince words. We're preparing for a crisis. If these programs are cut, food banks will be the only line of defense left for many families. And we're already operating at capacity. It's not just about hunger or clinics. SNAP is expected to contribute over $10.7 billion to Texas's economy by the end of 2024, supporting more than 94,000 jobs. Cutting it won't just empty refrigerators, it will tear through local economies, schools, pharmacies, and childcare networks. So what happens when a nation decides that food and medicine are negotiable? The homeless crisis in Texas isn't growing because people have given up. It's accelerating because the structures built to protect them are being dismantled, line by line. And when those final supports vanish, people don't fall into homelessness, they're pushed. And yet, there's still silence, a slow, cruel fade into policy language and budget lines, far from the faces on the ground. You don't see the net until it's gone. And by then, it's not just one family falling. It's a society forgetting how to catch its own. Number 10. Texas. National leader, but people are hungry. How can you live in one of the most powerful states in America and still not have enough to eat? That's the contradiction you face. Texas leads in business, energy, and tech, yet by 2025, you are one of more than 5.4 million Texans living with food insecurity. And if you're raising children, the odds are even higher. More than 1 in 5 children like yours go to bed without a full meal. In places like Bexar County, where you might be raising a family, 19% of neighbors and 22% of kids don't know what's for dinner tomorrow. You've seen the prices rise. Eggs, milk, bread, up over 22% in just 3 years. Your paycheck? It stayed the same. Your rent's gone up. So you ration. You skip meals. You hope the food pantry line moves quickly. But even the places meant to catch you are overwhelmed. The Houston Food Bank is now distributing more than 207 million meals a year, and still, it's not enough. You hear the whispers. SNAP cuts could strip away support for over 155,000 people in Houston's Fifth Ward alone. In San Antonio, food banks are bracing for a 20 million meal shortfall this summer. Central Texas just lost over $5.5 million in vital food aid. And through all this you wonder, where do the billions in high taxes go, if not to make sure your children have enough to eat? This isn't just about food, says Rosa, a grandmother you met in line. It's about dignity, and it feels like we're losing both. You work, you sacrifice, you keep moving, but the system keeps shrinking. So ask yourself, in a state this rich, how did hunger become your normal? While Texas leads in GDP and business growth, gaps remain in social safety nets. Officials point to targeted food aid programs, but food insecurity continues to rise. And if it could happen to you, how many more are just one paycheck away? What does the American dream mean to you? Today, you work hard, but still can't afford rent. You skip meals not because of choice, but necessity. Many now feel that the system no longer works for them. But how did we get here? At Romekind, we share these stories not to shock, but to awaken. Because hunger, homelessness, and hopelessness should never be normalized. So, we ask, what would it take to rebuild dignity for everyone? This content is intended for educational and journalistic purposes. All data is cited from publicly available reports. Share your voice in the comments. Let this be more than a video. Let it be the start of a conversation we all need to have. This material is produced for educational purposes only and does not represent the official views of any organization.